got about 538,000, some more popular votes than George W. Bush did. So the last one, we have some familiarity with. Happened in 2016. We know that Hillary Clinton got almost 3 million more popular votes. It's about 2.1% of the popular vote more. So Hayes Tilden about 3%. So it's a bigger upset than this is. But it's not really that close like it was in Florida and any of these states. We do know that Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, about 77,000 votes made a difference in those 3 states that might have informed the Electoral College. So, what does this all tell us? Well, I'm not sure, but I think it tells us a number of things. One is, we've got these 3 examples from the 19th century, where I'm not convinced we were that good at counting and that we were that good at communication, and I'm not sure that the outcome in some ways made that much difference. We have none in the 20th century. No, none in the 20th century. But we're only in 2017, and we already have 2 in the 21st century. So you got 5 times where the popular vote and the Electoral College don't agree, 2 of them in very recent history. So maybe that tells us something. I think there are a couple of things for us to ponder before we have a conversation. One is to go back to the framers. Like I said, it always makes me nervous to try to speculate what a bunch of rich white men were thinking about in the 1780s. But there are a couple of things that they didn't anticipate. One of the things they didn't anticipate was that there would be political parties. And especially that there would be a 2-party system. So how many times have you seen them throw up the map where we got red states and blue states? Right? That's what we have. We have 2 parties. We've had 2 parties really since the early 1800s. But the framers anticipated that we would have like 20 colors on the map. That we would have various factions. Remember when Madison wrote Federalist 10 and we're always talking about factions? They thought there would be just a lot of different factions instead of political parties. And so the Electoral College makes more sense, it seems to me, when you're thinking about factions in some ways, than maybe it does for 2 political parties and for 2 major candidates. As you know, 3rd-party candidates don't do very well traditionally in American history, with only a couple of exceptions. So for the most part, we're talking about that. They didn't think about that. So that might enter into it. We mentioned that they were counting slaves as 3/5 of a person, and they certainly wouldn't, in their wildest dreams, imagine that they would ever vote. So that creates a different sort of situation. They also, frankly, didn't think most white men who didn't own property would be voting. And they certainly didn't think that women would be voting. So when you think about what the framers were doing with the Electoral College, those things make a difference. They also never imagined the geographic immensity of the United States down the road, or the huge population. You know, we have some experience with this in Idaho. I'm looking at Shirley Ringo, and Idaho's a small state with population. People know each other in politics, or know of each other, or know somebody who knows somebody who, I mean, it's hard to not have some connection in Idaho politics. Well, that's the way the whole country was when the framers were creating this, right? They all knew each other, they learned about each other, it was a pretty small group of people. They had a notion about how this would all work. They never imagined that there would be a place like Idaho miles away from where they are, much less Alaska or Hawaii. They never imagined that hundreds of millions of people would live here. So when they thought about the Electoral College, they were thinking about something very different than who we are in 2017, it seems to me. And so I struggle with, I mean, they were pretty smart folks, right? They created a constitution that still is in existence. But how much did they really, they couldn't imagine the internet or television. Those things that greatly impact the way that we communicate. They didn't anticipate that people in Idaho would give a darn about refugees or immigrants or anything like that. They thought that people would have mostly local concerns based on their communities and the people that they knew. And we have those are important, but we also have bigger concerns, and we have now global concerns. People in this room can find China on the map. Some of my students can't. But people in this room can. Well, people in 1787, no, not so much. I mean, Thomas Jefferson certainly could. James Madison could, but your everyday person, probably not so much, right? And certainly they never imagined that they would be involved in world wars or in foreign policy issues that involve these widespread things. And they didn't imagine that their economy would be so tied to a global situation either. So all of those things are different than what the framers were thinking about when they wrote this Constitution. It doesn't mean they weren't right, but it's something to ponder as we think about the Electoral College. And the other thing that occurred to me as I was thinking about this topic, the Constitution, my father was a lawyer, my brother's a lawyer, my son are lawyers. They think, they know everything about the Constitution and historians don't know anything about Constitution. But anyway, we had some conversation about this, my son and I. We don't mess with it very often, the Constitution. Right? We couldn't even get the Equal Rights Amendment added to it, which for me, what could be controversial about that? For another day. So, the numbers of times, only 27 times have we amended the Constitution. I started to think about those. 2 of them are the Prohibition amendments. One created Prohibition, one getting rid of it, so those are kind of a wash. The first 10 are the Bill of Rights, which should have been part of the Constitution anyway, but they were having a sort of to-do, and so they ended up putting them there later, but they really belong there, right? One of them is federal income tax, which I thought at this time of year there's all kinds of reasons to get rid of that particular amendment, but that's a substantive change. A whole bunch of the rest of them have to do with voting. The 3, 13, 14, 15 civil rights post-Civil War amendments. The amendment that gives women the right to vote. I think that's pretty important, that the League of Women Voters. The amendment that gives 18-year-olds the right to vote. So those are a whole group of kind of voting ones that have something to do. The rest have, in fact, a lot of the amendments have something to do with elections. The direct election of senators instead of having the House of Representatives do that is one of them. And in fact, our state legislatures, a lot of people who are big proponents of the Electoral College think we ought to get rid of that particular amendment as well, the 17th Amendment, that states need to have those pieces of control, and that we probably shouldn't have taken that away from states to begin with. And the other ones, the 20th, the president starts his job January 20th, which I think is an easy way to remember that particular amendment, instead of March 4th. District of Columbia gets the vote as an amendment. There's a no poll tax amendment. There's the amendment that says the president can only serve two terms, the 22nd. There's the 25th amendment about the presidential succession. So almost all, when you make a list of the 27 amendments to the United States Constitution, almost all of them have something to do with kind of elections, with a few minor exceptions. And many of them have something to do with who gets to vote in the presidential election. And so I keep asking myself, okay, if those are the changes we've made, we've changed who votes in the presidential election, should that change whether or not the Electoral College still makes sense? And I kind of go back and forth about that. I mean, one of the great things about the Electoral College, it does recognize that states are states, and they have a role in our federal system, and that we ought to pay attention.